reasonable deal for both sides.
I think once the Ducks got to 7, it was going to happen. That's my sense, Justin, that Anaheim just had to get there. You know, Nick, you know Pat Verbeek as well as anybody in the league would, or anybody in our business would. And I think at the end of the day, this is a huge year for the Ducks. And, you know, Verbeek and his lieutenant, Jeff Sullivan, they're very fierce negotiators. But I think they realized, you know, you look at it today, he's on their second line center. And I think he's got Gauthier and Granlund on his wing. This is a big year for the Ducks. Big year. I think everybody realized it didn't make a lot of sense to keep McTavish out to the start of the season. And hey, $42 million, it's great for McTavish, and it's not a back-breaking deal. You know, aside from Trouba, who they brought in there, the biggest contracts they've given out are $7 million now for McTavish, Terry, and Granlund. So it's not like it blew up Anaheim's salary structure either. And I just think once they got to 7, McTavish was like, okay, I'm more than this.
Yeah, the general feeling I got over that negotiation that the number started from McTavish at 8. So I'm with you. I think it's a pretty good deal for Anaheim. I'm actually kind of surprised that perhaps there wasn't a team out there that would offer sheet him, because I think at around 9, even if it was for 2 or 3 years, it would have cost a first, a second, or a third, which I like McTavish a lot. I would have given up a first, second, and third for him. Based on what we saw last season with Edmonton and St. Louis around Broberg, were you surprised that teams are still reluctant to go down that path?
Yes and no. The only reason I would say no, Nick, is that I know teams are terrified of that Gavin McKenna pick this year. There's, you know, there were some teams that looked at that and said, what if we crater, or what if we're not that good? And, you know, we've given up the number 1 pick that becomes Gavin McKenna, or the defenseman who's really rising up the draft charts right now. I know some teams are really scared of that. The one team, Nick, that wasn't afraid of it, but I don't think they seriously considered this one, was Carolina. Like they almost offer sheeted Bouchard, and they basically did offer sheet Keandra Miller, but worked out a trade for him instead. I'll say this though, someone did tell me in the last week there was a team out there, and I haven't figured out who it was, that was trying to reacquire one of their draft picks to think about an offer sheet for McTavish. And I thought my first immediate guess was Carolina, but they said that wasn't the team. So somebody did at least consider it. But Nick, I think the fear of that McKenna pick has terrified a number of teams out there. And the other thing too is the Ducks, by the way, they made it clear they weren't doing bridge here. They were always doing terms, so that made it a bit of a longer conversation.
Well, that's kind of what I wanted to ask you about. Just in general, I have been looking at these guys who are legitimately great players, and I'm not so sure about the commitment to term all the time. I understand that people like security, guaranteed money, and all those sorts of things. McTavish had 22 goals and 30 assists last year at 22 years old. His ceiling is to be, what, an 80-point, 215-pound centerman. You know, if he goes 3 years, 4 years, he could make $15 million. You know, like, it just feels like I feel like teams are making great value deals right now, and I'm not so sure that agents have caught up to the idea that they're leaving a lot of money out there.
No, I think there are. Like I said, I think in this case, Verbeek made it very clear they were not doing bridge. And I heard that in several places, that Anaheim made it very clear that they were going for a term, and they just had to get to a place where both sides agreed. I think you're right. You know, Justin, I'll tell you this. I think there are more players, particularly younger players, who are willing to do short-term deals right now. But we have a situation where the cap has really jumped, and there's a bit of a battle being fought between the agents and players who want to take advantage of it, and the teams who are trying to push back. Like, I've had a few managers tell me, and it's not collusion. Like, the whole thing with Kaprizov, nobody's offering Kaprizov 8x16 if there's collusion out there. But I think there is a feeling of, we have to hold the line, because the asks out there are getting really, really high and commensurate with where the cap has gone. So I think what's one of the reasons, like, you take a look at all these extensions for UFAs this year. Eichel. McDavid, I think, is a bit of a separate situation, but Eichel, Kaprizov, Alex Tuck. Like, look at all the guys who are unsigned going into next year, and they haven't signed yet. And remember, everybody was talking about how Draisaitl waited last year until the first week of September. Well, now we're headed into October, and look at all of the uncertainty. And Justin, I don't think that's a term issue, but I think it is a percentage of the cap issue. So I think they are trying to wield their power. And I will say this, Justin, I've asked players before about signing shorter term. I'll say this, that the one thing that they all say to me is that they feel in hockey there's just such a huge risk of injury that a lot of guys will take the security.
You're watching and listening to Hockey Night in Canada and 32 Thoughts, Elliot Friedman. So I would imagine between Kirill the Thrill and Connor, I don't know, the song and dance will continue.
Kirill, and I get the sense right now, Nick, that the Wild are kind of saying, this is where we are, 8 times 16. I think they're wondering two things. Number one, is anybody out, does he want to be here? And that's one thing they're trying to figure out. And number two, are we negotiating against ourselves? Like, just say for argument's sake, they say, okay, we'll do 8 times 18. Do they really feel that there's anybody out there that's going to beat that? And if he wants to leave, he's going to leave for whatever anyway. So what's the point of raising the offer? So I think the Wild kind of let this sit and percolate and see where this goes, if anywhere.
The danger,
McDavid,
Elliot, the danger with these superstars is trying to hold on to hope. And we've said it best on what hope is, right? And if the it's the Marner and the Leafs. Like, now that we've had a chance to really reflect, did you ever think that there was a chance that Mitch Marner was going to ever sign in Toronto?
The only thing I've said, Nick, is if they beat Florida, don't you think they find a way?
I based a lot of my feeling on they're banking on a big run, and he changes his mind, but it never came close. So I'm just wondering now, can Minnesota do the same thing? Can they just sit there and hope Kirill changes his mind?
Nick, I think you're bang on. I mean, one of the challenges there, and we learned this last year, is that Marner had the hammer with the no move clause, right? And Kaprizov's got the same thing. So you're limited in what you can do. But I think the thing you're 100% bang on right about is it's like dating, right? It's like asking somebody out. If this person says no, do I go back to them and say, all right, I'm going to try to convince them to change their mind?
Yeah.
Or as the movie goes, it's just not that into you. You have to be honest about what the truth is.
And McDavid, we know you got plenty of experience there, right?
That's right. I understand. I've heard the line. There's plenty of other fish in the sea. There's plenty of other fish in the sea. With McDavid, I just think it's. I don't know. My whole feeling on McDavid has been pretty honest. I think he's going to sign for short term. I think the number is going to be lower than we think. I think it's going to be below 16 if he stays there.